we go on a Monday edition, Mr. Irrelevant with you. I'm Alex Strouf, Joshy DiMaggio here. Hunter Vaughn back at the Everlight Solar Studio in downtown Madison. Madison Hayes, 24 on Instagram, our social media queen, is very offended I did not say her name. She is also here. Good to have you here, Maddie.
I actually just talked into her ear to bother her.
What'd you say?
Just, hey.
That's it?
Yep. Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. All right, well, let's stop doing that and focus on what we're doing here, huh, Joshy?
You got it.
All right, thanks, buddy. Why are you sitting in the dark today?
You know, I didn't realize I really was until this moment.
It is very depressing in that room. Yeah, let's work on that. Got it?
This was the light I walked into because someone must have been here late yesterday, and I just left it.
Okay, well. Good to have you here, regardless. Hunter Vaughn is with us for real this time, unlike Friday, as we had a little hiccup there. But Hunter Vaughn is here Friday, right at 12, or Monday, right at 12:30. Good to have Hunter with us. Lots to get into today. NFL trades possibilities, NBA trades that went down over the weekend. An absolutely chaotic weekend in the NBA. How much pressure does this put on the Milwaukee Bucks ahead of Thursday's NBA trade deadline? We will get into that a little bit later. However, this is huge news. Earlier today, star defensive lineman and edge rusher for the Cleveland Browns, Myles Garrett, announcing on social media he has requested an immediate trade from Cleveland, leaving the door open for the Packers to address a need they so desperately need to address this offseason, which would be the pass rush. Myles Garrett, debatably the very best in the entirety of the NFL when it comes to rushing the passer. So obviously a huge opportunity available here for the Packers if they want to take a look at going after Myles Garrett following his trade request from the Cleveland Browns. This puts a ton of pressure on the Packers, right? I mean, as you look at who is now available and what teams he would be interested in, he's probably interested in winning a championship because Cleveland ain't doing much of that. A team that has made the postseason 2 years in a row and has a huge need on the edge should be calling the Cleveland Browns. It would be an abject failure if at the very least the Packers did not make an offer. And it might not be a good enough offer, and it might not be an offer the Browns are interested in, but it is a complete mismanagement of a football team that is on the brink of all of a sudden becoming a championship-worthy team if the Packers do not draft up an offer. Doesn't happen to happen today, but it has to happen soon. The Packers have to be in on the Myles Garrett conversations. They have to be. And if they're not, it's a complete failure. And it's bad on Brian Gutekunst. It's bad on Mark Murphy as he makes his exit. Shoot, it's even bad on Matt LaFleur if he isn't pushing for it. And Jeff Hafley as well. If the Green Bay Packers do not make a serious offer to the Cleveland Browns over the course of the next few months or weeks, depending on when he gets traded, it is a failure. Garrett saying on social media, as a kid dreaming of the NFL, all I focused on was the ultimate goal of winning a Super Bowl. And that goal fuels me more today more than ever. Then he goes on to thank Ohio for the 8 years he spent there. Obviously a first-round pick back in 2017. Going to the bottom of this statement, the goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. It has always been to compete for and win a Super Bowl. With that in mind, I have requested to be traded from the Cleveland Browns. That from Myles Garrett earlier today, released all over social media. And, of course, the speculation has begun, right? Which team is going to make the best offer for Myles Garrett? Now, the good point here is this makes the Browns lose leverage. Now, they're still going to ask for, and rightfully so, a hefty package because Myles Garrett is that good, right? He is a top 5 player in the NFL regardless of position. He's that good. But when you look back at, and maybe the biggest trade in recent memory for a defensive player is when the Bears traded for Khalil Mack from the Raiders. They gave up 2 first-round picks. He was 2 years younger than Myles Garrett is right now. Myles Garrett, 29, Khalil Mack, 27 at the point of the trade. I don't know if it's 2 first-round picks, but this is the game I would like to play. If you are Brian Gutekunst, what are you offering? I will start, but I want to hear from Joshy and Hunter and from you on this as well. You can get in on the action, ESPN Milwaukee, ESPN Madison on YouTube. Hit the comment sections. Let me know. If you are the Packers, if you are Brian Gutekunst, what are you offering right now? Here would be my initial offer. It'd be as simple as this. I'm giving up this year's second and next year's first for Myles Garrett. I don't know if that's enough, but that's what I would offer right now. That's at least where I would start the conversation. Second round this year, first round next year. Joshy?
I start with this year's first. Probably include Rashawn Gary in it.
Oh.
Because as much as we are down on Rashawn Gary and his numbers were down, that is still an asset and probably a first-round talent. Now, underwhelming, but Rashawn Gary's don't necessarily grow on trees.
No, they do not.
So as much as it is a sizable downgrade, it is still, there's still value in a guy like that. Now, do they want to take on his money, what he's going to be paid? Who knows? And then I probably start throwing in some future second or thirds if to sweeten the pot there. Because, well, let's be honest here, players like Myles Garrett do not become available.
Oh, it's so rare.
They are not things like this guy has future Hall of Famer on his resume right now, and he still has a lot of career left. And I think his style of play actually translates quite well into the future. He's not like a speed and bend guy. It's a lot of power and physicality and skill at the position. So I think you have to be aggressive, and you can't really bleep around.
No.
Trying to lowball them at all, I don't think he does. I don't.
Would you view what I said as a lowball, second and a first? You think?
Yes. Well, because as each successive pick in the future loses value. So the first round pick this year is worth 20% more, maybe even 30% more than next year's.
Agreed.
Just because that's the way they view the draft. So every year, so you need this year's first, I think, is a starting point. If for whatever reason that isn't the market, but we saw even Diana Rossini's smaller amount in her tweet that it looks like a first is going to be part of it, and this year's just because that team has to get a lot better faster, and they are in a bad spot.
Now, here's the thing, and I have this on the rundown, number 3, draft picks. But this is a legitimate concern. I've heard a few people bring this up today, and I think it is a completely fair point. The NFL draft is in Green Bay. I don't think there is any chance the Packers don't make a selection day one of the NFL draft in Green Bay. I find it so hard to believe that Mark Murphy, and look, I kind of get where he's coming from, but it would be silly not to offer this year's first-round pick for a guy like Myles Garrett. But there is definitely some legitimacy to Murphy has put in so much work at landing the draft in Green Bay. What a disappointment it would be for the fans that are going to travel from not only all over the country, but all over the world to come to Green Bay as Packers fans, maybe even for the first time, to witness this historic event, right? Once-in-a-lifetime type event that is the NFL draft in Green Bay.
I fully understand that. And now we're talking future, this is still extremely unlikely. But what leaves a more lasting mark? The Packers making a pick at 23 or acquiring a future Hall of Famer that you can legitimately put in the same breath as Reggie White?
It would be that big. It would absolutely be that big.
I understand it. Gabe said it, and believe me, I floated this idea out there myself. You have to, with Mark Murphy, he has Aaron Rodgers-sized ego. Mm-hmm. He spoke for 45 minutes at Matt LaFleur's opening press conference. Mark loves Mark. And we all know that to be true. He answers questions for some reason every month from Packers fans. Why is he doing that? Because it's Mark being Mark. He wants to be part of the limelight. He made it so he's king in Green Bay.
Yeah.
He's created a system that didn't prior exist. You have to factor this in. But when it comes to Myles Garrett, you could quibble over Trey Hendrickson. Would it be worth trading your first-round pick, not getting that moment? But you know what makes that crowd erupt? When Myles Garrett comes out for the second or third-round pick and makes the pick. That would be Royal Rumble level pop of surprise, awesome moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did Joshy just make a Royal Rumble reference the Monday after the Royal Rumble?
Sure did.
Good for you, pal.
Didn't watch a moment of it.
Oh, I watched the whole thing, and it was awesome. It was really fun. little bit of a disappointing ending, but that's neither here nor there. Shout out Jey Uso, though. Yeet. Do either of you have any idea what I just did?
I know that's the thing he does with the crowd. And it's much like the what was Daniel Bryan's?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, you got it.
I understand.
Okay, so back
I
to
had
Mark
no
Murphy.
idea. Why are we talking about a male soap opera?
See, that's just an unnecessary.
Yeah, I mean, Hunter, let's not.
No,
I
this is
don't
stupid.
yuck your yum. You know what Hunter told me? Fine, if we're gonna do this, let's do this.
Yeah, I embrace it. I don't care. I'll tell everyone
Hunter and
myself.
Per usual, we meet before the show, right? For about a half an hour, 40 minutes, and we figure out what we're doing today, right? And he says to me, I didn't really watch sports this weekend. It was a cleanse. It was nice. You know what I did? I watched the extended cut of one of the Lord of the Rings movies on Sunday morning. He's going to come after my male soap opera.
This is what I was going to get into, Hunter. You and I, Hunter, we have this both. I read a lot. You love the fantasy world. You love Star Wars. You have a lightsaber tattoo. Flash
I
to
do.
the camera, I believe. That's right.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to show it on camera, but yeah.
Yeah, we are as dorky as he about our things as he is about, about his wrestling.
Don't yuck my yum.
No,
thank you very much.
My problem with wrestling is just admit and embrace that it is fake and scripted. But wrestling fans refuse to do that and get upset about the fact that it is fake and scripted.
Number one, fake is not the right word, and scripted is not the right word.
The outcomes are predetermined.
When you guys do this, it's not fake. They're really Yeah, I see them really doing it.
And it actually hurts. They're actually doing things that are painful.
Great.
Right? Saying it
That
is
just
fake
makes them idiots.
Incredibly rich idiots. But yes.
Are they that rich?
The top guys make a lot of money. And they work a lot. They work like 300 days out of the year. But anyway. All right. Back to Mark Murphy, please. Jey Uso, really? We couldn't have done John Cena or CM Punk. Anyway. So, to your point, Joshy, Mark Murphy loves Mark Murphy. And that's fine, right? Like, all in all, he has done a really nice job in his role as we approach the end of his role. Post-NFL draft, when Ed Policy will take over as the president and CEO of the Packers. This is kind of his big thing, right? The Titletown District and developing that was huge in terms of business, in terms of money towards the Packers. He continues to raise more money, which is great, right? That's what his role is for. But his big thing was landing the draft. And he tried time and time and time again, and he eventually got it for this year. Look, I think it is more a Goody decision whether or not he deals that first-round pick. But don't you think there will be a conversation that Mark Murphy says, we got to reward our fans for being here on a Thursday. We got to reward our fans for being here from all over the country. Less people will show up if they know we don't have a first-round pick.
I think that's an improper. The draft is a national event. It is not the Packers hosting X, Y, and Z. The place is typically filled with as many other fans as it is Green Bay fans. If Green Bay fans, like, I want to go to the draft as a fan of the Packers.
Yep.
It would not matter to me if the Packers were making a pick or not, because I'm there for the pomp and circumstance and all of the event that is around it. Like, you can just go back the next time they're making a pick if you really want to see the Green Bay Packers make that pick. I don't think it would discourage anyone, and we have to factor it in. We have to leave it there. But if you're Mark Murphy, wouldn't you care more about your legacy than that one moment? Like, an eventual Super Bowl would be more important. I mean, he's like barely. Ed Policy's like taking over from him. They've been working together now for how long?
Right.
Like, is it his moment that he's going to stop the potential of the Packers for? Just for that 23rd, which will be a blip on the radar. If the Packers were drafting in the top 5, I think you'd have more here. And the concerns would be more valid. Because that's like franchise-changing pick. The Packers have picked 23rd before. Brian Bulaga, Iowa. They pick in this range a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's a drop in the bucket in comparison to future Hall of Famer.
Joshy, if we're just being honest, they've missed more than they've won.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Justin Harrell, who's the dude? He was the defensive end out of
Derek Sherrod.
Well, that was an offensive tackle, but yes, another good pull. 32nd overall in 2011.
Justin
Harrell, of course, back in 06 or 05, whenever that was. 06, I think it was.
I mean, Eric Stokes.
Eric Stokes is a miss. Darnell Savage.
Yes.
Right? I mean, the list goes on and on. The list is lengthy. I will think of the guy whose name I was thinking of, though, the defensive tackle. But yeah, I mean, they've missed more than they've won in the first round. So it would be silly to not start thinking about the package you're going to offer. March 12th is when the new year begins. Wednesday, March 12th. So a little over a month from now is when the new league year begins, and that is when teams can officially trade. Now, I don't think there's a rule against negotiating, right? I think Brian Gutekunst could call Cleveland today and say, hey, what's the market like? And this comes a week after we were talking about the rumors surrounding Max Crosby, as Brian Gutekunst down in Alabama at the Senior Bowl is talking to their new general manager with Wisconsin ties about maybe the potential of Max Crosby. So just looking at it for what it's worth, it would, A, make a ton of sense for the Packers to be in a conversation about one of the best edge rushers in the league. And B, it would be complete tomfoolery, mismanagement, etc., if the Packers do not give a legitimate offer for Myles Garrett. He is that good. And he is a complete game changer for a defense that could desperately use one at that position. You've got more money to play with than you ever have, at least in recent memory. Why not take a swing and do whatever it takes to bring in one of the best pass rushers in the entire league? It'd be insane to me if the Packers... Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't expect the Packers to land Myles Garrett. I just don't. But I better see that tweet we always do, it seems. The Packers were in conversations. Because if we don't, that's bad. Because naturally, what this feels like is going to happen, Joshy, and I can't think of a name off the top of my head, but it feels like it's happened before, where a big trade happens for a big name in the NFL that the Packers probably should have on their radar, and the package is not as big as you expect. Right? So what if it is a first round this year and a second round next year? That's it. And the Packers didn't do that. That's where I go, oh boy. I'm losing hope that this team's going to be able to catapult into the Super Bowl conversation. While I can have high hopes for whatever the Packers do at pick 23, this is a bona fide sure thing. I'll give up pick 23 every year if I know I've got Myles Garrett sitting there ready to get after Caleb Williams or Jared Goff or whoever next year. They have to be in the conversation. They have to be.
It's fascinating how much this marries with what Goody was talking about in his postseason presser, the one right after the season.
The sense of urgency at the end of the conference. Yeah.
Sense of urgency. Talked about trading for veterans and how you can do it, but you better be right. There are guys that, just because you're 30 doesn't mean you're on the back end of your career. Like, it seemingly would fit all the requirements. Tausch was super in on this and then concerned because Myles Garrett has no guaranteed money left on his contract, but he does have 2 years. I believe it's around $30 million a year or whatever. Building an extension on that and hammering him with a bunch of basically signing bonus money, and then you can make this happen without it totally destroying and emptying your coffers with one move alone. There is enough in that $40 million, especially with restructuring and stuff that you could do on top of that there is more than enough room for the Packers to make that happen.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Just some cleanup. The name, Dayton Jones. That's what I was thinking of.
UCLA, great.
Indeed. Packers, not so much.
He was drafted specifically because of Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah.
And they needed an edge guy that was big and strong, but fast. And could hold an edge.
Yeah, he was one of those ones where I thought he was going to work out, and he just never did.
Never did.
That's too bad. I'm worried that's what Lucas Van Ness is going to become. All right, I asked the question, what are you willing to offer for Myles Garrett? Roberto says, Lucas Van Ness, Kingsley Enagbare, and whatever pick you get from an eventual Jair trade. I don't know if Jair's getting traded.
Nope.
I don't know who would want him.
We have to be serious here. The Browns are taking our scrap heap.
No.
Kingsley Enagbare and Lucas Van Ness aren't going to move the needle.
Not as much as you'd hope.
No.
They might move it a little bit, but you're still going to have to give up a first-round pick.
Right now, Lucas Van Ness is as good as, what, a fifth-round pick? Even though he was a first-round just 3 years ago?
Yeah. Comey0202 says, trade Strouf for Garrett straight up. Myles Garrett hosting Mr. Irrelevant, me playing defensive end for the Browns. I mean, I'll tell you this.
Oh, here we go, Hunter.
I'd watch that. It'd be more entertaining than wrestling.
So I stood next to Myles Garrett once, and I'm taller than him. He's listed as 6'4". He's not 6'4".
No one believes that. So
I'll give you the scenario. So this was back in the 2021 season, and the Browns played at Lambeau on Christmas Day. I was filling in doing some freelance work for Westwood One that day, and the responsibility of that job essentially is you communicate injuries up to the booth, and then you hold a mic essentially for whatever their post-game interview is. So I think it was Ryan Radke and Mike Golick were on the call, and I was just holding the microphone for their post-game interview, which that game happened to be Davante Adams. And so I'm holding the mic for Davante Adams, and Myles Garrett comes over to dap him up. And he doesn't realize he's doing like a radio thing, even though he's wearing cans on his head, right? He's wearing headphones. And Garrett's like trying to talk to him, and I kind of have to like wave him, like 1 second him, right? Like, hold on just a minute. We're wrapping up. And so Garrett kind of stands next to me for a moment. And I was legitimately taller than him, and he's wearing cleats. And from that day, I've sworn Myles Garrett is not 6'4".
How tall do you list yourself as?
I'm 6'3".
Okay, so you know Myles Garrett went to the NFL Combine, right?
He did. That's true.
You know he got measured basically naked.
Yeah, that's correct.
You claim to be taller than somebody who got measured in front of other people.
Who's measured taller than I measure
Yes,
at. Correct.
Yes. Okay. You don't think maybe there was some sort of forced perspective going on? There was, maybe he was lower than you for a natural pitch on the field?
No, I'm taller.
Or where you were standing?
No, they lie about his height. Or they're lying about mine. Maybe I'm 6'5".
Well, you could measure yourself.
Or Strouf's ego is just that big, and of course he's going to think he's bigger than an NFL player.
Well, he's much more muscular than me.
Oh,
you don't say.
You to admit that. So brave.
I'm just letting you know. He is much wider than me. But no, I'm taller than him. So there you go. But regardless, he is an absolute game wrecker.
Officially on the NFL website, Myles Garrett's measurements from the combine is 6'4.5", 272.
Wow.
So I think you're lying.
All right. Well, when he gets traded to the Packers, we'll have him on the show, and we will go back to back like they did in elementary school when you had to figure out who goes where on the risers. That's what we'll figure out with Myles Garrett. That'll be our big mission.
The only way you're actually taller is if
really stuck on this.
If he was doing some sort of, you know how they hang from your ankles? They have those boots you can put on to stretch out your spine. The only way that works is if somehow he was doing that, got his height up a little bit based on that, and then basically through the rigors of an NFL season, he shrank.
Oh, now that. You might be onto something. Might be onto something there.
Sounds totally realistic and not just like you're wrong.
Hunter, I haven't gotten your take on Myles Garrett and the Packers' involvement yet. What do you think? What do you think it'll take? Do you think the Packers will be in on the conversations and anything we've missed over the course of the last 25?
I wouldn't be surprised if the conversations revolve around the Browns maybe trying to get one of the receivers from the Packers. Like, they may ask for, like, Jaden Reed, or I don't think they would go Romeo Doubs, but like I feel like they may want some sort of a young offensive weapon because they may try and go quarterback than the Browns might, and they're going to want more pieces to build around him that they could have for years to come. So like that might be a direction that they try and go, and I just don't know if the Packers are going to make that move. Like it'd be great for Packer fans, and it's fun to think about, but I just don't think they're going to do it. This just doesn't feel like a move that the Packers would actually make.
Unfortunately, I agree with you, but they have to be in on the conversation. And if they're not, it's a big miss. Now, we'll have time to think about this, and all teams will, because as I mentioned, the calendar year for the NFL doesn't start until March 12th, which is when you can officially make trades. Now, that's not to say negotiations can't happen and conversations can't begin. And I know there's obviously a lot of contractual stuff, right? Like, so for Jair, for example, you're going to want to designate him as a post-June 1st cut because it saves you money. For the Browns, I imagine if he's not on the roster and he is a post-June 1st exit, that will save them money, and that's likely the route they will take. I know Darren pointed that out in the ESPN Milwaukee YouTube chat as well. So as we dive into the specifics on this, no, we have to wait, right? You know, there's not going to be a Myles Garrett trade announced tomorrow, which is unfortunate. But I'm really intrigued to see how many teams get involved in this, because Myles Garrett made it clear as day he wants to go to a contender. Right, he wants to win a Super Bowl. That was mentioned multiple times in his release earlier today, right? He said, very first sentence, as a kid dreaming of the NFL, all I focused on was the ultimate goal of a Super Bowl. Later, he goes on to say stuff like, my goal is to compete for a Super Bowl. With that in mind, here we go. The goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton, right? So saying from Cleveland to the Hall of Fame. It has always been to compete for and win a Super Bowl. With that in mind, I requested a trade from Cleveland Browns. So it is very clear teams like Hunter's Dallas Cowboys probably not in the mix. It is very clear that teams like, I don't know, the Arizona Cardinals probably not in the mix. But teams like the Packers and the Commanders and teams that are just maybe a piece or two or three away are going to be in the mix. The Packers have the cap space. Frankly, I think they have the trade capital. I just don't see what could stop them from giving them an offer they can't refuse. The Packers have the pieces to give the Cleveland Browns an offer they can't refuse. Will they pull the trigger on that is the big question. And that's the one I'm wary of, frankly. So we will see.
Are you at all
on that.
worried with this, that in the conversations that the Packers hopefully are having with the Browns, that they don't try and view Myles Garrett being 30 as the same way that the Packers themselves internally view older players and try and get his price down more because of that? And then the Browns are just like, okay, if you're going to sit here and play games, we're not going to mess around. We have other teams who are actually serious about this. Because I feel like that's part of why I'm kind of worried about this for the Packers, is that they're not going to value Garrett the way they should just because of his age.
Yeah, and it's a fair point by you. A couple of things on that, right? Like, this youth movement experiment for Brian Gutekunst is fun. And it's provided some really fun moments the last few years, right? The rise of some of these young guys that other teams probably wouldn't work into their, onto the field until year 2 or 3. Think about a guy like Tucker Kraft. What a fun story he's been. Think about this year, right? All those pieces on defense. Edgerrin Cooper, Javon Bullard, Evan Williams have carved out legitimate starting roles on a defense their rookie season. But something the Packers desperately lack is A, veteran leadership, and B, guys that have been there and done that. Now, Myles Garrett obviously has never been to a Super Bowl, but he is an absolutely dominant force, right? He's the best in the planet at what he does, right up there with T.J. Watt. And Max Crosby, who's a name, obviously, that's been floated around a lot. I saw somebody, and I want to give credit real quick on the ESPN Milwaukee YouTube chat. It was Roberto that said, he'll be 30 next year. I'd take Max Crosby over him if less expensive. I think the package will be comparable. The nice part on this Garrett request is that lowers the leverage the Browns have. Garrett's not going to play another snap for the Browns. They know that. So they're going to take the best offer they get. And just for purposes of being transparent, right? Max Crosby is 27. He'll be turning 28. So he's about a year and a half younger than Myles Garrett. And both dominant. But when it comes to the youth movement and maybe Garrett being older than some of the players you pay for, he also gives you way, way more output than any other player on the planet does. So does age really matter? Sure, you're not going to have him until he's 38. It's probably not going to be the case. But could you get 3-4 good years out of Myles Garrett? Yes, absolutely. You could. So that's why making this trade is worth it. I hear you, Hunter, because I think it's a completely fair point, given Brian Gutekunst's track record. But this has to be the exception to the rule. If anything is, this has to be it.
It's got to be. And Hunter brings up totally fair points. I've been hemming and hawing them myself. I think it would be to a level of like malpractice that is like this is one of the best single-handed football players on earth that is becoming available to you.
Right.
These guys don't become available, and they don't become available at this point in their career. Like some of these guys eventually will end up after it's like their career's run its course. I mean, he's still in his like physical prime. Now he's not ascending by any means, but the amount of Myles Garrett before you have to worry about his skill decline, that's so far away.
Yeah, and Ron and the Key, our guy on the ESPN Milwaukee YouTube chat, also making a fair point, right? The age means less than it used to. And I think what he means by that is this, right? Like the Packers and Brian Gutekunst's 3-year plan that we outlined last week, and Rob Domofsky did a great job diving into on ESPN.com, is he wanted to start fresh, right? Jordan Love, bring in guys he can grow up with. You're past that now, right? Like Dobbs and Watson entering year 4, Reed and Wicks entering year 3. Kraft and Musgrave entering year 3. So you've got all these young guns offensively. And defensively, you've got a really nice core building, right? Look at, obviously, you've got Gary under contract and Clark under contract. Quay Walker likely going to get a 5th-year option. So you've got at least 2 more years to deal with him. Edgerrin Cooper, Javon Bullard, Evan Williams, Xavier McKinney, obviously under contract. It's time to go get a game changer. And I think that's what Ron means by the age means less than it used to.
Well, I also think, too, just scientifically. Guys age better. And I mean, he is physical specimen. Look at he's an Adonis. He's cut from marble. He's like, it's not like Luka Doncic, who just got traded.
Oh, we'll get to that.
Who might be having a few too many beers. I don't think Myles Garrett has taken too many cheat days. If you've ever seen him take his shirt off.
What do you think? What kind of candy do you think he likes? He's probably like just a regular Snickers guy.
He strikes me as a Swedish fish guy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
You a Swedish fish guy?
I enjoy them.
Yeah.
I don't eat them often, but once they come around, I go, oh, those are nice. I like those.
Yeah. Ron follows up. I mean, 30 in the NFL isn't what 30 used to mean. Money can buy fountain of youth these days. Look at LeBron. True that. Okay. So I imagine we're going to revisit this throughout the week because it is that big of a story. It is that big of news. And the Packers absolutely need to be in the mix. Like,
Here's a question I got for you.
Yeah, hit me.
Aside from Jordan Love, and I'm not saying Jordan Love's better, I'm just saying if Jordan Love gets traded for Myles Garrett, you don't have a future for a Super Bowl, so it doesn't make sense.
Malik Willis ain't winning you a Super Bowl. Sorry to break it to you.
Excluding him and positional value of a quarterback, is there any no-go on the Packers? Is there anyone you would say, that's a bridge too far, he's aging? Like, I would send him back, Xavier McKinney, and tell you, guess what? If they required it, I would obviously not.
But you're saying this in relation specifically to Myles Garrett?
Yes. So when it comes to Myles Garrett, is there anybody you would definitively say no? There's certainly like price and everything works here, but Xavier McKinney, even probably the single best player on the team, you'd say, between him and Josh Jacobs.
Yeah.
Even him, I'd be like, I'll figure it out with Bullard, Williams, and Katan Oladapo. Like, I would be okay with it.
Don't forget about Zane Anderson either, who had a couple nice plays in 2024. Yeah, the answer is no. Nobody's off limits, except Jordan Love.
Yeah.
Jordan Love is the one piece that's off limits. That's it. I can't think of anybody else. They want Josh Jacobs? Sure, take him.
I would honestly hem and haw about like a Zach Tom.
Yeah, that's where my head went, was like one of the offensive linemen, Elton Jenkins or Zach Tom.
I'd hem and haw that one just because that's probably.
You're really hemming and hawing a lot today. Yeah. Have you noticed that?
You got to hem and haw when it comes to Myles Garrett. You got a lot of things to think about.
A lot of hemming and hawing to be done.
You could be, imagine the hem and hawing if you were a Browns fan.
Hunter, are we forgetting anybody? I mean, the answer is no, right? No, there's nobody except Jordan Love off limits.
Yeah, I mean, I really think maybe is a Zach Tom and Elton Jenkins. And then that's where the list ends of where I'm not, like, thinking about it if I'm the Packers. Right. I did see this interesting, Schefter tweeted this, and I've seen it going around. The Browns GM last week quoted as, he was asked by a reporter, quote, if someone sees you at dinner and says, we'll give you 2 ones for Myles, do you say I'm not interested? Barry, the GM of the Browns, said, correct. You can put that on the record. So the Browns are saying, no, we're not going to trade him. Now, obviously, if Myles is saying I'm not going to play,
things have changed though. Right?
Yeah, but that's been their stance right now. Is like we're not moving the guy. So that's
I did see somebody put out that their stance remains the same, that they don't plan on trading him. I don't think they have much of an option.
I don't either.
Yeah.
They're going to have to at some point. It might drag out though. I mean, we might not have a solution until training camp. Legitimately.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we could get to a point at the end of July where Myles Garrett hasn't reported to Cleveland, and then they finally feel the need to pull the trigger. So this is likely going to get dragged out that way. Now, the other point with Andrew Berry that Hunter brings up, in the statement that Garrett released, he said the goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. Berry was quoted as saying Myles Garrett is going to go from Cleveland to Canton.
Yeah.
So that is a direct shot at Andrew Berry in his release. Shout out to Matty Hayes for the information on that one.
I mean, if you're a member of the Brown, they have nothing to stand on. They did the Deshaun Watson thing. They ruined the franchise. They ruined any future of success there. And they've, screwed him, basically. Now they're paying him. Obviously, he's well compensated for that. But the team's going nowhere, and it's obvious. And it's going to take a while to get out from under the hell they've created themselves.
Real quick, Joshy Greco, I think I'm saying that right, on the YouTube chat says, you'll like this one. When it comes to untouchable players, Brandon McManus. It's a great point. I mean, I don't want to go through kicker hell again.
I'd sign up for Myles Garrett.
Myles Garrett, Brandon McManus, straight up. You doing it?
Yeah. Here's the thing. If they want McManus, I'll have Myles Garrett kick for the year. Don't care. I'll take what.
I'll just go for 2. I'm good with it.
Yeah,
I'm good with it. All right.
He's got to be a good leg on it.
Yeah, he does.
That's a big man.
Before we move on, Strouf did send this to me, so Joshy, we got to figure this out. Is Strouf actually taller than Myles Garrett? I've got it up on the screen.
So that's not Myles Garrett. That's Austin Hooper, the tight end at the time.
Well, then that's not really helpful.
Well, I just want to give you context of the situation. So that's my back to Devontae Adams.
You're just bragging that you stood in front of Devontae Adams.
No, I want you to understand
we're not
the
even
context,
putting that
though.
back on there.
We're not on a hill, right? I mean, we're not on a hill, so you can
There's
rule
a pitch
that
to
out.
the field,
I was taller than Myles Garrett. I'm just showing you the scenario in which he approached near me. He didn't approach me. He approached Devontae Adams. But
was he barefoot and you in shoes?
I was wearing normal Nikes. I bought boots finally the next week. It was the first time I ever bought boots in my life.
What do you mean the first time you bought boots?
I never owned boots. I don't. Maybe as a kid I did. I guess.
Yeah,
the first time
you had to have had snow boots.
No, maybe as a kid. Yeah, but never in adulthood.
CPS would have been called on your parents.
It's probably true. So I think I did have boots then. Yeah, that's a good point. All right. Let's get to this because, I mean, this is what a weekend in the NBA. I mean, absolutely bonkers stuff. As Luka Doncic, as Josh, you referenced earlier, traded from the Dallas Mavericks to the Los Angeles Lakers. Anthony Davis goes back to Dallas. Luka, one of the best 5 players in the world, that might even be high, goes from one team to another, goes to Los Angeles to team up with LeBron James. Doncic, I mean, he was in the NBA Finals last year. He is an unbelievably good player, and is still pretty young. Has a lot of tread left on the tires. And the Dallas Mavericks move on from one of their, if not, probably not their best, Dirk Nowitzki is, but probably second best player in franchise history. So, number one, the question that continues to be asked is, what the hell were the Mavs thinking? Clearly, there was more to that story that we will eventually find out, I would guess. There had to be internal problems with Doncic and management. There had to be stuff going on. But to go from the Mavs to the Lakers is bonkers. Bonkers. And then yesterday you see Zach LaVine, who had been rumored around the Milwaukee Bucks, traded from the Bulls to the Kings. 3-team trade that also involved the Spurs, which saw De'Aaron Fox get traded to San Antonio. So amidst all this chaos, you have to wonder what's going to happen with the Milwaukee Bucks. So I've reached out to the 2 people that I know more about the NBA than anybody else I know. One is Justin Garcia, the host and color commentator on the Milwaukee Bucks radio network. He gave me a full breakdown on whether or not the Bucks could realistically trade for Jimmy Butler and sign him long term, as the news has come out that he told the Warriors he's not going to sign an extension with them. Butler, obviously a Marquette guy, has Milwaukee ties. Seems like it could make sense in terms of a fit. Now, is there a potential that the Bucks could hang on to Chris Middleton, Giannis, Dame, and add Jimmy Butler and make that a thing going forward? The answer, long and short, is yes. There is a path to figure that out. Obviously, incredibly unlikely. And who the heck's playing center then? Because you likely have to trade Brook Lopez and Bobby Portis if you're going to land a guy like Jimmy Butler. But the answer to the question is yes, you could do it. Now, again, I think it's unlikely. I think if you're building a what's the right word? A consistent and not chaotic locker room. Do you really want Jimmy Butler in the room? That's a question for you to answer. But what we know is he's a dog and he's an amazing player and he's probably the biggest name yet to be traded prior to Thursday's NBA trade deadline. So, yes, you could make it work if the Bucks were to trade for Jimmy Butler. But there has to be other names that you're starting to think about, right? Like Ayo Dosunmu in Chicago is a guard that you could add and not pay a ton for. What are you looking at me for?
Ayo Dosunmu is not on my mind.
I understand it's not Jimmy Butler level, but if this team is looking to get younger and beef up the depth a little bit.
You phrase that like Ayo was a household name.
I said what team he was from, so
come
clearly
on, Josh. He's an NBA guy. NBA guys know who that is.
It's true. He's right. What are you laughing at?
Are you going to start talking about who's the eighth guy off the bench and the value to them to the Bucks, or what?
No, but my point is the Bucks need to make a move, right? I mean, before we get there, though, Giannis for Luka straight up. You saying yes?
No,
I'm not either.
Absolutely not.
Are you hemming and hawing?
No, I think it's pretty clear that the Luka stuff is not about how terrific he is on the offensive side of the floor, or really how poor he is on the defensive side. It's clearly all the other stuff. They are short selling on Luka Doncic, and they could end up looking like fools, or everyone would go, "Yeah, maybe we should have trusted them."
Yeah.
Random with this, but did you guys see their press conference from the Mavs? It was their GM and then head coach Jason Kidd. Oh my gosh, Jason Kidd looked beat down. Like this was not his choice, and he looked like he wanted to just lose it. But he had to just sit there while the GM's talking about how somehow the older Anthony Davis is better for them long term. Like it was.
He looked
wild.
shell shocked.
Yeah.
So, did they give any explanation as to why they traded Luka Doncic?
Better long term.
I mean, look.
That was basically
okay,
it.
But no. But I hear you, but no.
They resisted. So if you follow the tea leaves here, they resisted saying the stuff that they really meant.
Right.
And all that stuff's been leaking out. The fact that he's like apparently up to 270 pounds. The fact that he's not concerned with his body type and his like general fitness seems to be.
Hey, to be honest with you, if I'm the GM or the coach, I don't give a damn what your fitness is. If you're doing what you've been doing, I'm good, bro. I'm good.
I think what they're telling you is they do not think he is going to age well. And once he becomes available for that, well, no longer that Supermax, that would be a big issue because he would continue to get injured more and more often.
He's practically averaging a triple-double.
Hey, I'm not saying it was a good idea. I'm just telling you it seems like Luka isn't fun to work with and isn't particularly concerned about like the health aspect. And what better place than to get him to figure out than with LeBron James, who's at 41 and somehow has kept it together.
That's a good point.
40. Sorry, I misrepresented him.
Would you say 41?
How dare you?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Seth chimes in. NBA is fixed. It's why it happened. Need LA to be good. It's the only explanation. I promise you that's not the case. But I appreciate
Can we ban that person?
No. Seth, you're welcome anytime. I love a good conspiracy theory.
Ban him.
Dude, I have literally broken out a legitimate tinfoil hat on this show before. I'm all for it. I am pro nonsense.
I'm so tired of the fixed.
Oh, me too, but it's all right.
It's every mid IQ you see. Everything's fixed.
Everything's fixed. No, don't insult this IQ though. That's apologize.
Yeah,
to Seth.
that wasn't called for.
I think I was being nice by saying mid.
Seth, I think you should just make fun of Joshy's vocabulary. It's a touchy subject with him.
It's touchy with you.
Hey, rumor has it you said you used the word seismic in a poll today.
Yeah, that wasn't me.
Oh, who was it?
That was posted by Jen.
Okay. But
because
Jen Latta, you're referring to Jen Gabe and Chewy, weekdays mornings 7 and 9.
The reason Seismic was we wanted to get in also Shock, because there's been big trades. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers getting traded is like, in terms of like actual, it didn't feel that big because we all knew it was going to happen.
Right, it dragged out forever.
Right, it dragged out. It was clear there was acrimony between them for multiple years. Luka, we thought, was going to sign a Supermax, and basically they were just going to build around him.
I thought Luka would be a Maverick forever.
Correct.
Dirk Nowitzki style.
And that's why Seismic was used, because it was earth-shattering, like, whoa.
Yeah. Crazy weekend.
Who was talking about Seismic and me putting it in a poll? Who tried to bus roll me?
Nobody tried to bus roll you.
Is she in the room with us?
She may or may not be in the room with us. And she said, "What does this mean to me?"
Ah, gee.
I said, "You don't know seismic?" And that's coming from me, Joshy. I said, "You don't know what seismic means?" So she was going to reply with the ESPN Milwaukee account, and it says, "Do you know what seismic means? Yes or no?" But I said, you probably shouldn't do that.
I think most people would know.
Yeah, I was going to say, that could end up embarrassing
yes.
for ESPN Milwaukee.
Yeah, I talked her out of it. We're good. All right, you learn something new every day. For some people, it's the word seismic. We learned something new today. It's time now for What We Learned on this fine Monday. Josh, he's perched up. What do you got?
I'm going to try and say this without sounding like the oldest guy ever.
Oh, I'm excited for this.
But I think music is in a bad spot.
Okay, why's that? You watched the Grammys last night, I assume.
I watched the Grammys. Huh? I saw clips. I don't think anything interesting is being done from a music standpoint, and I think we've gotten extra vanilla, and it is basically the formula applies to every popular artist that is somewhat similar right now. There is nobody doing anything different or interesting.
Okay.
And the only one you could really say that about is Chappell Roan. But Beyonce's album was not good. That song, not that great. It got played a lot. Sabrina Carpenter, what's there? She's cute.
Wow.
Benson Boone, why are you a worse version of Imagine Dragons? What is that?
Okay, that's a take. That's a take.
You suck.
That is a take.
That song, awful. Awful.
What did you say it sounded like earlier?
Sounds like a true stroke engine when you're revving it.
These beautiful things that I've got. I want you, I need you, oh God.
There is no like outsider influence. It is just what it is.
Yeah, that was good, Joshy. So you're not happy that Kendrick won 5 Grammys?
No, Kendrick, I understand. Kendrick is like, and even Beyonce, I'll excuse. I thought the country stuff was whatever. Like, but Kendrick, like that song was, here's the word, seismic. That like controlled basically a summer. It is like very newsbreaking. Jake
chimes in on the ESPN Milwaukee YouTube chat. Just says, Josh, please don't.
I mean, it's just, now, Grammys have been protested before by outsiders like the Pearl Jam and stuff
rock
like
music
that.
For sure. They disrespect the hell out of rock music. I'm with that. Yeah.
But usually there is some sort of intrigue. Like Bon Iver's been part of it. There's nobody doing like any interesting music. We are in the world right now of everything is very similar. And it reminds me of, and I know people are going to be mad about this, it reminds me of the Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC. It is all very processed. It is all very, very for mass consumption. There is nobody being interesting.
I mean, to bring it to the sports world. I keep getting flashed
about this.
It's the take about the NBA right now. Like, it's been analytic to death, so it is either 3 or dunk, and then there's nothing in between. And the nerds have figured out, like, this is what's going to make you the most efficient. This is the best way to do this. It's the same thing with the music stuff.
Yeah. And you can apply it to also movies.
I can't get over the 2-stroke engine.
I mean,
I can't.
The song is insufferable. Why did Gen Z look at Imagine Dragons and go, we need another one of these?
I don't think that's what happened.
That is exactly what that
I actually think that's a beautiful song.
No.
I happen to think that is a beautiful song.
There is not a day that's going to go by for the rest of your life where you hear that song and you don't think of this True Stroke.
Yeah, it's too bad because that's my niece's favorite song. It's been my niece's favorite song since it came out.
How old's your niece?
My niece is 3.
Oh.
3.5 to be exact. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. But,
it's crazy.
Anyway. All right, Hunter, what do you got?
Sticking with the Grammys theme, photo up on the stream right now of Kendrick Lamar. He went 5 for 5 with for Not Like Us. And I just want to point out the fact that was a diss track about Drake, who's from Canada. Kendrick Lamar wins 5 Grammys, and he wears a Canadian tuxedo to the Grammys. So
it's
just
a hell of a move.
Adding on to the disrespect for Drake, and I love it.
Can we just talk about the hell of a week Drake is about to have? Started last night, ends next Sunday.
Yeah.
This is a song in which he is literally called a predator.
Uh-huh.
Yep. It then went on to win not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 international awards. And the entire crowd is singing along the part where it says probably A minor.
I saw
right?
Taylor Swift do it.
Yeah, yeah. And so obviously that's humiliating for what it is. Then next week, the biggest television event in America every single year, in the world, excuse me, not America, the biggest television event every single year is the Super Bowl. Playing the halftime show and confirmed playing the song that won 5 Grammys last night is Kendrick Lamar. Drake not only lost this beef, he lost it like 8 times over. It won't stop, right? He got vocally murdered when this song came out, and it won't stop. It won't go away. It's incredible. He can't go to a Super Bowl party. Like Drake, known sports fan, can't like watch the Super Bowl with other people because it is going to make a reference to him being a predator at halftime. It's like, wild.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I'm here for all of it. I think my favorite part of the beef was when DeMar DeRozan showed up on stage and danced with Kendrick Lamar during the show to Not Like Us. So, like, a Toronto guy.
Toronto legend.
Yes, was there with Kendrick. Like, I love it. I also don't like any of Drake's music. I don't get how people like him at all, so this has been great for me.
Wow. Joshy and Hunter on the anti-music bandwagon today. Well, I know a bandwagon we can all get on, and that would be the anti-Bears bandwagon. Joshy, you want to jump on real quick? All right, let's start.
I feel like I've been planted there since about 2002.
What year were you born?
88, but I wasn't really paying much attention to football.
You were born in 88?
Yeah.
Wow, old.
Yeah. I'll be taking Maddie, who made that face, to HR. We don't age shame here.
You're right. We don't. We do not. So let's start with the Pro Bowl. So first off, I do want to give a little bit of credit to the NFL. They tried new things again this year. Some of the quarterback contests, the game shows, the flag football. I know they did much of that last year. This is the first year I've actually watched it. I give them credit for trying new things. It still wasn't that great.
What are you doing?
I figured I'd give it a shot before I said, it's awful, right? We don't need a Pro Bowl. We don't need a Pro Bowl. But it was okay. I thought the quarterback target challenge was kind of fun. I thought I watched on, I think it was Thursday night, Xavier McKinney and Rashawn Gary playing like the newlywed game. Like, that's kind of fun. It's different. But meh, we don't need the Pro Bowl. Anyway, as I mentioned last week, I was at family Christmas for my girlfriend's family last night. I know it's February. I get it. We still did it yesterday. And the Pro Bowl was on in the background. Wasn't really paying attention until I saw this. Jalen Johnson, cornerback of the Chicago Bears, ran around the Pro Bowl yesterday with his jersey shirt backwards. He was the one player that was wearing his name on the front of his chest rather than the back, because the front is your team logo and your number, and then the back, typically your name and your number. Jalen Johnson all week, not just the game, all week, wore his shirt backwards to show his name over the team he's representing, which, just a very Chicago move of him. Just incredibly Chicago. Like, tell me you're a douchebag without telling me you're a douchebag. Example A.
Here, I'm going to make another outdated reference. Have you ever heard of the group Crisscross?
Heck yeah.
Do you know what's famous about Crisscross?
But they also wore their pants backwards, Josh. Jalen Johnson was wearing his pants backwards. So you can't give the crisscross defense.
Well, I wasn't giving a defense. I was saying this hasn't been done since crisscross. And I believe they wore also shirts and jerseys backwards.
Okay, but hold on.
Yeah.
What does Jalen Johnson looking like a fool have to do with crisscross?
Crisscross wearing their clothes backwards also.
Yeah, but crisscross is more of a musical statement. This is an athlete playing in a flag football game.
Was it a musical statement, or was it a fashion decision?
Maybe a little bit of both, but they were doing the fashion decision to differentiate themselves. Where Jalen Johnson is attempting to differentiate himself in a flag football game.
Was Jalen Johnson not trying to differentiate
Read
himself?
the room for a moment, Joshy. Read the room. Right, like,
what am I reading?
This isn't a fashion choice. This isn't a fashion choice. This is him saying, I am greater than everybody else here. Read my name, which is the most generic last name in NFL history. Right? There has been more Johnsons in the NFL than Smiths or Joneses. Nothing about you is different.
He treated the Pro Bowl with the due amount of respect.
That I won't argue with.
So, I didn't even know the game happened.
That's fair. The NFC won, by the way.
Cool.
I was happy for them.
Seth with a good point, who you tried to ban. Great point here. If you care about creativity, you need to find smaller artists and independent film creators, which you can even find on YouTube. Hear that, Joshy?
I'm wearing
a
camel hat of a band called Jesus Piece. You don't need to.
P-E-A-C-E or P-I-E?
P-I-E-C-E.
Got it.
They are a small hardcore band. I listened to a lot of it, but there also was a time where a lot of different music also got popularized.
Did you see one of the artists that kicked off the Grammys last night? Did you watch?
I did not see the beginning of it.
Brittany Howard shredding some guitar.
She's now in a hardcore band herself.
Is she?
Yes.
No kidding. She's phenomenal. Saw her at Summerfest
Alabama
last year.
Shakes.
Speaking
herself.
of, Alabama Shakes. So that's not the metal band, though.
What?
Alabama Shakes.
No. I don't know the name of the band,
Okay,
but she recently went semi-viral for being. She was doing screaming vocals.
So what we've learned today is that the Packers should trade for Myles Garrett. That Mark Murphy doesn't want them to trade their first-round pick, probably, because that's very Mark Murphy of him. Josh hates music. And Summerfest announced their newest headliner this morning, and he didn't even know this until I told him. Benson Boone coming to Milwaukee this summer. That will do it for us today. We're back with you Wednesday beginning at 12:30 Central. ESPN Milwaukee, ESPN Madison on YouTube, and available wherever you get your podcasts. Remember to rate us 4 stars, not 5. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Rate us 4 stars, not 5, wherever you get your podcasts. The campaign's going strong. It's going well. Appreciate all of you that are doing that. Just search Mr. Relevant. It'll be the first result that pops up. Click subscribe. Go ahead and rate us 4 stars or 5 if you feel like it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We'll be back with you Wednesday, continuing to discuss the Packers offseason. We'll probably preview the Super Bowl a little bit the rest of the week. Chiefs and Eagles coming up Sunday from New Orleans. It's going to be a great week. Hey, peace.